Hi, my name is Brett Swisher. I'm a former Vanguard financial advisor and a CFP at Sturkey Wealth Management. Due to being located in central South Carolina and our partnership with Curis Financial Credit Union, we serve a lot of Prisma employees. And a common complaint we hear from our clients is they don't really understand certain parts of their retirement benefits. And I understand why, especially for high earners. Once you reach a certain point, some of the options available to you can become pretty complex. With that being said, the purpose of this video is to hopefully educate you about Prisma's retirement benefits so you don't end up leaving money on the table. And a quick note, outside of our partnership with Curis, we are not officially affiliated with Prisma Health. Again, I'm making this video as an educational piece to help our clients and other Prisma employees understand their retirement benefits. Here's an agenda for what I'll be covering today if you'd rather skip to a section. Additionally, if you'd rather schedule a conversation to talk about these topics, there will be a link available in the description. All right, so in order, we're going to cover the 403B, the 401A, the 457B, otherwise known as the Top Hat Plan, the 457F, and Prisma Health's Capital Accumulation Plan, also known as PCAP. And then we'll jump into what this means for you and how does everything work together. All right, so let's start with the 403B because it's the most familiar. At Prisma, you may see it labeled in your statements as the retirement savings plan, and it's where you elect to contribute a portion of your paycheck. Think of it as the nonprofit's world of a 401k. A few quick facts on the 403b. Number one, you're automatically enrolled at a 3% contribution unless you opt out within 30 days. There's also a feature that automatically bumps up your contributions 1% a year until it reaches 15%, which you can turn off at any time. Two, you can make traditional, which is pre-tax, or Roth, which is after-tax contributions, or a mix. And three, for 2026, the most that you can put in is $24,500 if you're under 50 years old. That number goes up to $32,500 if you're 50 or older, and up to $35,750 if you're age 60 to 63. A few general things to consider on the 403b. First, that 3% auto enrollment is a great starting point. Prisma also offers a discretionary match through the 401a, so you want to be contributing that 3% to capture everything you're entitled to. Any sort of match you don't take advantage of is free money left on the table. Second, the Roth versus pre-tax decision. A lot of people will set this once and never revisit it. With pre-tax, you lower your taxable income today and you pay tax on the money when it comes out. With Roth, you pay a little bit more in tax today, and qualified withdrawals can come out tax-free in retirement. As a general rule of thumb, if you're early career, you typically want to contribute more to that Roth account, whereas if you're later in your career, you want to contribute more to a traditional IRA. And the idea here is minimizing taxes. Earlier in your career, your income is going to be a little bit lower, so you can pay less in taxes if you pay it up front now. Versus if you're later in your career, your income is going to be higher, meaning it might make sense to wait until retirement in order to pay income taxes on it, because likely your income tax might be a little bit lower. All right, next is the 401a. The simplest way to keep these straight, your 403b is where your money goes, and your 401a is where Prisma's money goes. Any kind of match offered by Prisma is going into this account. Prisma funds it two ways. First, a discretionary match, anywhere from 0 to 3% depending on your role and the financial performance of Prisma. That matches what you put into your 403b. And second, a flat 3% non-elective contribution that Prisma puts in every pay period, whether or not you contribute a dime. It's all pre-tax money, which means it's all taxable when it comes out. For this account, the biggest thing to be aware of is the vesting schedule. Matching contribution is yours immediately. The 3% non-elective contribution vests on a cliff, meaning you get nothing if you leave early, and then you're 100% vested if you've worked at least 1,000 hours in 3 different plan years. So if you're thinking about leaving, it might be worth checking your vesting schedule. All right, next, let's talk about the 457B. This is what a lot of physicians and management are going to have access to. In plain terms, a top hat 457B is a deferred compensation plan offered to a select group of higher paid employees. Its big appeal is that it gives you a separate contribution bucket from your 403b with its own limit, on top of what you're already putting away. For 2026, that's up to another $24,500 that you can defer. And that can be higher if you're above 50. So if you're a high earner trying to bring down your taxable income, it's a meaningful extra lever you can pull. There are some important rules that come with it, though. The money generally stays the employer's asset and is exposed to their creditors until it's paid out. You usually can't borrow against it or roll it into an IRA when you leave, and the choices about how and when it pays out can be locked in. A quick side note, Prisma also has a governmental 457B. That one's only for select employees working in a direct government capacity. The rules around that one are a little bit different, but for most of you watching, the Top Hat Plan 457B is probably what you have questions about. So, if you have one of these Top Hat plans, a couple things to keep in mind. Number one, if you're looking to reduce your taxable income, consider contributions. It's a separate bucket from your 403B, so it can be a powerful way to set aside more on a pre tax basis and bring down what you owe today. You can max out both at around $24,500 if you're under 50. And second, be aware of the creditor risk. Like I said before, the money generally stays the employer's asset and can be exposed to their creditors until it's paid out. If Prisma went into financial trouble, the 457 wouldn't have the same protections as your 403B or 401A. I'm not personally worried about Prisma's financials, but still something to be aware of. All right, moving on. Then there's the 457F. This is a different plan, and it's usually reserved for a small group of top executives and key physicians. This is a form of compensation that could be described as golden handcuffs. In the same way a 403B is the nonprofit version of the 401k, you can think of the 457F almost as the nonprofit version of RSUs, meaning restricted stock units. A 457F doesn't have the same IRS dollar cap that a 457B does. It's built to let an employer set aside larger amounts of deferred compensation. It also comes with a significant condition, a substantial risk of forfeiture. You typically have to stay employed through a certain point to actually keep the money. Leave too early, and you can forfeit it. In a piece that normally catches people off guard, the money usually becomes taxable to you the moment that risk goes away, which is when it vests, whether or not you've actually received any of the cash. So, if you're receiving money through a 457F, here's what matters most. First, pay attention to the vesting schedule and the tax consequences that come with it. The money can become fully taxable the moment it vests, whether or not you've actually taken it. Knowing when this happens and planning around it can save you from a nasty surprise come tax time. And in that same vein, second, coordinate the vesting year with the rest of your income. Because a 457F can become taxable all at once, it helps to look ahead and plan that year alongside your other income so a big lump doesn't land in your highest tax year by accident. All right, finally, the Prisma Capital Accumulation Plan, or PCAP. This one's a little bit more advanced and it's offered to a select group of physicians and executives. I'll keep this high level because it's genuinely complex. If you're familiar with a universal indexed life insurance policy, that's what this is. If you choose to participate, you'll be buying a life insurance contract that'll accumulate in cash value, and then you borrow against the balance, which is tax free, once you've accumulated sufficient assets. The difference here is that Prisma offers to match 15% of every dollar contributed towards the plan. To put it in simpler terms, PCAP is an extra optional way for high earners to set aside money in a tax advantaged way on top of everything else we've covered. It's built around a life insurance policy that you own, and that structure is what allows money to grow and come out tax free later. It also means your benefit is generally protected from the employer's creditors. So, does this make sense for you? And honestly, it depends. PCAP is complex enough that this really is a one on one conversation and typically not something to decide from a quick video. A couple of guideposts, though. It's meant to come after your other plans. You generally want to be maxing your 403B and your other options first. It's also a real multi year commitment. It tends to be a good fit for higher earners who have already filled up other options and are still looking to lower their taxable income. For most people, it's premature. So if you think you might be eligible or you're already in it and not sure that it's set up the right way, it's worth a conversation. So, what this means for you, we've covered a lot of accounts, but the most important part is how they all fit together, because that's where the real planning happens. Think of everything as one portfolio spread across many buckets. I'd like to give you a few general tips on how to approach the entire picture. First, asset location. Where you hold an investment matters much as what you hold. Income heavy holdings often belong in your tax deferred accounts, and growth often belongs in your Roth accounts. If you have a large balance of pre tax versus post tax, and you're getting to the point in your career when you need to invest in fixed income, it's important to look at your 403B, your 401A, your 457, your Roth, and your taxable, all as one coordinated picture. Second, you want to balance pre tax and Roth on purpose. Between your 403B, your 401A, and the 3% non elective contributions, most Prisma employees end up heavily on the pre tax by default. Deliberately building some Roth, especially an early career, gives you control over your tax bracket in retirement. Third is sequencing your buckets, and this just means funding the right accounts first. What this is going to look like for a typical Prisma employee is that 403b first, then the 457 if you have access to it. Then the PCAP might make sense once you fill everything else up, but from there it becomes a little bit more open-ended. Fourth, if you're closer to retirement, make sure you're planning on how your money comes out too. The order you eventually draw down these accounts affects your taxes, your Medicare premiums, and how much of your Social Security is taxed. Coordinating contributions now and withdrawals later is extremely important. So, a little bit about us. Sturkey Wealth Management is an independent financial planning and investment management firm right here in Central South Carolina. Our office is located right near Lake Murray Dam on the Lexington side. With that being said, we have clients all across the Carolinas. And like I said in the beginning of the video, because of our partnership with Curis Financial Credit Union, we work with Prisma employees every week. Providing guidance around these types of accounts is something we do all the time. In the description will be a link to our website. If you have questions, I would encourage you to give us a call. Feel free to reach out. I hope this was helpful. Have a great rest of your day.